Today's episode is a little different than our usual conversations. It's full of energy, vulnerability, and life. My good friend Georgia Sinclair is an international DJ, creative, and entrepreneur whose journey has taken her through the highs of global stages and the deep work of personal healing and growth. We talk about the evolution of identity, trusting your gut, and how doing the inner work can unlock not just clarity in life, but real momentum in business. It's a powerful reminder that professional growth and personal growth often come hand in hand. Georgia Sinclair, welcome to Magnetic. So happy you're here. Let's dive in. We've known each other for a long time. I feel like the part of your story that I probably even haven't personally dove into is really just your entire background of your personal narrative into being an artist and how that translated into you even thinking about your name as a brand
Mhm.
and just that whole paint that picture for me.
Okay.
Like, how did you even get to being who you are today? I mean, you're a creative, you're an entrepreneur, you are an influencer, a creator. There's so many, you're multifaceted, but that came, I think, from the originality of being, Georgia Sinclair as an artist,
Mhm.
first and foremost. And then that translated into all these different segments.
Okay.
But you correct me if I'm wrong. I'd love to hear your story. And
Okay, so how did I start? Well, it's a really interesting story because I kinda knew from a very young age I wanted to be a performing artist. Like, I was that kid that used to put on plays for my family at home, and I didn't really know what a performing artist was. I just knew that I like to live in make believe land, and,
yeah,
I think I initially thought that that was act and my family thought this too, thought that that was acting. So as a kid, they had me in a youth theater and I was doing plays every weekend, outside of school. That eventually turned into I got discovered and got into modeling, but my heart wasn't in that. I did it just because it was something to do and a good way to make money as a teenager.
was this in
This is in Australia, yeah.
Australia? Yeah.
But through that, I was offered to audition to host actually a quiz show at the time for a TV network out in Australia called Channel 9, which is a very big TV network out. It's like a
Yeah.
CBS.
Yeah.
And when I got sent for this audition, I remember thinking, I've got absolutely no freaking chance of getting this. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way, especially when I found out that over 3,000 people were being auditioned from right around Australia for this job.
Wow.
So, to be perfectly honest with you, I was a bit of a naughty teenager and I think I was like 19 or 20 at the time. I thought I had such a small chance of getting this job that I went out and got so blind drunk the night before that I was throwing up all night. And I remember my roommate at the time, she was going for the same audition and she like went to bed at 8 p.m., took it so seriously, practiced all the lines, that kind of thing. I just thought I had no shot. So I remember waking up in the morning. She made me drive us to the audition because she's like, well, you've screwed it up. There's no way you're going to get it. So I was like, okay, yeah, you're probably right. So I drove us to the audition. The whole way there, I'm just trying not to throw up. So we get to the TV network and it's literally a cattle call. Like they had a line with barriers
Yeah.
of girls going in to audition for this role. And I'm standing in the line literally going, "Ugh." And then a couple of times I had to run to the bathroom and actually throw up. So it finally becomes my turn and I I get in there and the director sort of said, "Okay, so this is a live quiz show. I want you to sell me a stapler." She hands me a stapler. And I'm just thinking, I just have to try not to throw up on this woman. So I just start selling the stapler. I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, we have this lovely stapler. This is a really different kind of stapler. It holds an extra 50 staples. It's ergonomic. I don't know what the hell I said. To be honest, I absolutely have no recollection of what I said. I was probably still drunk. And then I get to the end of the audition and she says, that was really good. I'm like, "Wait, is she pulling my leg here?" She said, "Yeah, no, that was really good." I said, "Oh, okay, thank you." Walked out of there, ran into my roommate, and she said, "How'd you go?" And I said, "Oh, probably screwed it up. It's all right, I guess." And she said, "Oh yeah, I think I went really well." So I get a call from the agency a couple of days later, and they said, "Hey, they loved you." I said, "Are you on something right now?" And they said, "No, no, no, they really loved you." But they were actually auditioning for 2 shows. And the other show is this live variety kids show on a Saturday morning, which is I don't know if you've ever heard of a brand called Kids WB. It was like the Warner Brothers
Sure.
version. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was that in Australia, and it was actually run out of America. So that's when I started to take it seriously, and 8 auditions later, I knew that this was the thing on planet Earth. I was literally birthed to do this. I was so obsessed with it. I've never prayed harder for something in my life. I remember literally there was I would spend hours just on my knees just going, "Please let this be mine. This is what it's supposed to be." Like, I've never felt that something is more me than this job, and I got it. And I remember that was, oh god, the best still right now, that was one of the best periods of my life doing that show.
Hmm.
But I also don't think once I got it, and this was a huge lesson, I don't think I appreciated it enough. I just kinda got it. I got it at a young age. I got quite famous in Australia very quickly and all the perks that came with that, and I probably got a little arrogant. Probably got a little bit ahead of myself. In fact, I totally did, and I didn't appreciate it. And then I was given the biggest lesson that life's ever given me. So, when I was 22, on my 23rd birthday, I was diagnosed with a golf ball sized brain tumor. I'd been sick for a while, but my symptoms were sort of symptoms that I thought were more kind of reproductive symptoms, right? Like my periods had stopped and I was fainting a lot and I couldn't put on weight to save myself. I mean, there's just all these sort of weird symptoms. And I started, I now realize my vision was going. I was going
Mhm.
blind in one eye. And so eventually, after being fobbed off by 10 different doctors, and this is a really, really, really crazy story, they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And nobody was looking up here. Everybody was looking at the symptoms down here.
Wow.
And one night, I'd been to an event and I decided not to drink this night. So I drove to this event. I drove home from the event. And you know when you're so tired that you can't get out of the car? Does that ever happen to you where you just like, I just need a minute before
Yeah,
I go
yeah,
inside
yeah, yeah.
and you just literally kind of fall asleep in the car? Fell asleep in the car and I must have started to slip into a dream. As I came out of this dream, this is what happened. I have a brain tumor.
No way.
The words just came out of my mouth. I mean, I can tell you it was the last thing I was thinking about at 22.
Holy
And
shit. That's
so,
crazy.
yeah, it was crazy. And so then by coincidence, I found this new doctor who happened to be an OBGYN, weird. And she ran all these tests on me. And this was the same week. She said, I think, and it's probably not like a big deal or as big a deal as you think. I think you have a very small brain tumor. I'm going to send you for an MRI. We're probably not going to find it on the MRI because it's probably going to be the size of a pinhead. But, if you have it, we can treat it with medication and the other symptoms should go away. And also, while you're waiting for the MRI, I'm going to do some more blood tests on you. So a few days later, I was on my way to the MRI. My mom was driving me there, and I get a call from the doctor on the way there, and she says, "Hi, so your prolactin levels were around 3,000. The measurements are different in Australia. The second blood test is a little concerning. It's up over 100,000 now, so it should be between 0 and 500. I'm a little worried. I'd like you to come. You to bring the MRI straight to me after this." So I went in, I got the MRI, and I'll never forget this. So they can't tell you the results there. The doctor has to give you the results.
Mhm. Yeah.
I get off I get out of the
Yeah.
machine. I'm walking past and everybody in the office is just staring at me. And they sort of they hand me the MRIs and they say, "When are you going to your doctor?" And I said, "I'm actually going there right now." So anyway, drive to the doctor's. It's 5 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. My birthday's actually on the Monday. And she pulls out the MRI and she kind of falls back in her chair. And I look over at my mum, and my mum's just lost all the color out of her skin. And
Can't
she said,
imagine.
"I don't know how to tell you this. It's really large. It's in your brain. It's pushing on everything. I don't know how you're still alive. I don't know how you haven't had a serious stroke or something that's taken you out." She said, "I also don't know whether it's cancer or not. I don't know how long you've got to live. If you're gonna live, I don't know anything and I can't tell you anything." She said, "I'm gonna have to get you in with another specialist next week." So that weekend was just so surreal because I was like, what am I going to do here? Like, I wonder if I can keep working. Am I going to die? How quickly is it going to happen?
Yeah.
And I hadn't spoken to, I was going through a rough period with my family. I hadn't spoken to my dad for a few years. That week, and neither of my mother. That weekend, my mom called my dad and said, we might not have Georgia for much longer. We should probably all start talking as a family. And so they threw me a bit of a birthday celebration on the Sunday where everybody in the family came together because I had this big appointment on the Monday. And my recollection of that family celebration and also the doctor's appointments is that I was outside my body looking at myself. That's how I remember it. I spoke to another girlfriend who went through cancer and she said the same thing. It's bizarre. So anyway, on the Monday, I found out that it was very large and it was an active tumor. Thank God, not cancer. So then I went through the process of I had to go on this really crazy medication for a couple of years. There's since been a class action against this medication, so it really was crazy. To shrink the tumor,
Mm,
which gave me all sorts of side effects, I lost a ton of weight. I got down to 90 pounds, couldn't function properly, was incredibly depressed, suicidal at times, lost my balance, couldn't walk in a straight
mm.
line, just really, really unwell. And it sort of I deteriorated over a period of about 2 years. So while I was going through this, I had to leave my job, which was beyond heartbreaking. Anyway, fantastic. 2 years later, finally had the surgery. Surgery was super successful. I didn't have to go on any medication
Wow.
after that surgery. I've had no changes since. So I'm just so blessed.
That's
My doctors are amazing.
incredible.
My surgeon was incredible. But I think I always thought after that, I would just go and get another TV job.
I mean, how does that change your, like, fragility of life perspective, right? Like, coming out of something like that, how did that change your viewpoint on this next chapter of, like, career and how you use the time you have on this planet?
Well, I just don't think I would have had a fraction of the chutzpah to do everything I've done since.
Yeah.
I think I would have spent the rest of my life living in fear. Um, did am I still scared of plenty of things? Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, this is not you are not healed, like, the
Yeah,
healing is a forever thing, you know?
but it's so beautiful for you to I mean, I can't imagine what you went through, and thank you for sharing that, but, like, the beauty of you just realizing that life lesson, and now you've lived over 2 decades since then of really chasing all of these things that we've talked about and we will talk about today, but
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I'm there isn't a day where at some point in the day, I don't think, "God, I'm grateful that happened to me." And the other lesson that I really got out of it, which I think was a really big game changer for me, is the hardest shit is the shit that changes you.
mm,
You do not
yeah, growth is
I
in the
wish it
pain.
was different, and I'm listening to a lot of Joe Dispenza right now, and he says it
He's
doesn't have to
amazing.
be this way. He
Yeah,
is amazing. But if I look at my own history, the things that have really shaped me and defined me are the shitty times, the hard times, the times where it all goes wrong. It's never the times when you're flying high. I mean, when you're flying high, it's like, oh, what am I going to learn right now? Everything's good, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah,
But I don't want it to be that way. I would like to still be conscious and learning during those times. But historically, that's how it's been for
yeah,
me. So what came out of this is I just kind of thought that I would get a job back in TV. And I auditioned and just nothing stuck and I didn't get anything. And so then I started to feel like, oh my God, I'm back to square one. Like I've lost this. This was my dream. This was my
yeah,
purpose. What the hell's next? When I was actually going through my treatment, I'd always been interested in DJing as a hobby. And a friend of mine who was a DJ at the time was actually winding up his career because his marketing agency was taking off. He's like, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like, I'm going to get serious.
yeah,
But if you want to do it, since you're doing nothing right now, because I couldn't work. I could barely leave my house because I couldn't walk in a straight line.
mm,
He brought his decks around to my place and set them up on my kitchen counter, and he showed me what each of the buttons did. And then back then, this was like way before
oh yeah,
USBs or anything like that. There was
yeah,
no
yeah.
technology, no laptops, nothing. So
CDJs, all
it
that.
was literally the shittiest old pair of CDJ 800s
Yep,
and an old dirty mixer. The CDJs had cigarette burns in them. Like
yeah.
it was just, they were iconic now that I think about it. And he brought over this huge stack of really bad quality burned CDs, and I would just, like, put these CDs in, and I literally sat there for months because I had nothing else to do,
Yeah.
just pressing the buttons and learning how to mix. And so when the auditioning for TV shows thing wasn't really working out, I noticed I was getting a lot of opportunities, especially being a woman at that time. There really weren't many female DJs. Like, I started out around the same time Nervo did, I think. This was
Yeah.
15 years ago.
Heavily male dominated.
Heavily male
Yeah.
dominated. Um, and because I worked in the media, I had a lot of media contacts in Australia. So I remember the Herald Sun, which is kind of like, I don't know, New York Times, LA Times
Yeah.
version in Australia. They were having their Christmas party and they invited me to DJ their Christmas party, and I was bloody awful, but that was but I loved it.
Yeah.
And then bit by bit I started getting opportunities. And so at one point it just occurred to me like, okay, well, maybe I should lean in on this because the other thing isn't really working out and I do enjoy it. And that led me to America and a 15-year career as a DJ and music producer. And
Yeah.
since then, I've been fortunate enough to tour, tour America a lot every weekend.
Yep.
Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, some places in Asia. I've been to some really obscure places too. Mexico,
Atlantic
Guatemala,
City.
Atlantic City. Yeah, see, exactly.
Got it.
And that career has been a journey full of highs and lows and lessons as well. But, I wouldn't say I'm at the tail end of it now because I'm still doing it, but now I'm sort of my career is evolving again and
Yeah.
it's just yeah, and I would say right now in my life I'm in a huge period of lessons as well.
Yes. So
So,
I wanna get to those.
yeah,
Before we get to those, and again, beautiful story, so thank you for sharing that. I know it's probably hard to always recollect that narrative, but you didn't come from the music world. I think it sounded like you kinda picked it up, you built the passion around it and interest on it. How do you describe building taste? Because I feel like you're someone who has really good taste,
thank you.
frankly, and I think that kinda helps you have this energy and aura of magnetism and all of these other things that we've talked about in the past. How do you build taste? Because that is someone that's such an interesting topic to me. People who have it sometimes can't seem to put their finger on what it is, and I wonder if you can, of, like, what does taste mean to you, and how have you developed it over the last 10 to 15 years?
Taste is love, I think. Um I b I mean, I'm not from a musical background, no one in my family is musical, but especially my father and my sister always really loved music, and I remember as a kid, somebody was blasting a stereo in my house somewhere,
Yeah.
whether it was my dad or my sister, and it was just the music that they really loved, and I think I developed that love of music from just growing up
Mm.
around it. When I was a teenager, I the first job I ever had was, promoting underage nightlife events,
Yeah.
and I started that at 11 years old.
Yeah.
So I was going to nightclubs from when I was 11 years old, and I just really was passionately in love with music and different types of music. So it's always been a really important part of my life. I think I just never imagined at a young age that it would be my career.
Mm.
But how do you sort of build taste? Well, I think generally speaking, if you love it, the people around you will generally love it.
Mm.
Like there even now, even 15 years in, and I have played thousands of DJ sets at this point. Um, Whenever I get on stage, I am not playing a song that I don't love ever. I used to.
Yeah.
There was some people
Yeah.
pleasing in it for a few years in my career, which somewhat
You'll take the requests.
I
Yeah.
somewhat regret doing that. I regret nothing because everything's a lesson. But if I had to wind the clock back, if there's something I would change in my DJ career, it's being a people pleaser and saying yes too often, whether that be accepting gigs that were below my worth just because I needed the money or I felt like I had to or I was afraid not to or whatever it was, or if it's playing a DJ set that of just music that I really didn't want or accepting too many requests or basically just being a human Apple Music Store, like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
because that's what it can feel like.
Yeah. Play
I
this. You're like a jukebox.
yeah, like a
Yeah.
jukebox, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, and I sort of regret doing that because Now I'm all about leaning into your authenticity, and that wasn't authentic. But what I've noticed since I put my foot down and stopped doing that and started to really play the music that I wanted to play is that every time I get on stage, it doesn't matter where I'm playing, how big the crowd is. In fact, my favorite sets now are usually sets where I just play with my friends.
Mm.
If I'm loving it, they're loving it, and I'm always having a good
And
time.
that is such an interesting take because I've been on both sides of the table too, not only as a DJ, but
Yeah,
even
you
in my
have.
professional career. It's this art of loving it and then understanding that the audience will love it. And then the other side of the table is reading the room.
Yes.
How do you balance those 2?
If I see that a room is not responding, it's well, first of all, I'm usually not looking, I'm feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally
You
agree.
know,
Yeah,
you can
that's
think about being a DJ when you're up on stage, and I don't know about you with your sets, but for me, this has always been true. I can never sleep straight away after my sets, which is why I'll usually play a show and go straight to the airport and fly out because there's no point in trying to go to
yeah,
bed because you just suck up the energy from the audience the entire time they're there. There's this huge exchange of energy going on
such a
between.
high.
Yeah, it's such
Yeah,
a high, but there's just even if it's like a bad night and the crowd's not responding or whatever it is, you're sucking up their energy and they're sucking up yours. So I can kind of feel if a choice that I've made is not responding as well
resonating.
as, yeah,
Yeah,
is not resonating. And to be honest, that was probably the first thing that ever really made me want to DJ in the first place. The first time I ever saw a DJ, I was literally 11 years old, and I remember walking into the room and I remember looking at this guy and the thing I noticed about him is every song choice that he made manipulated the room, not in a bad way, but just he had so much control over the
mhm,
energy of the room. And I remember thinking, wow, that's a really powerful thing. Like you can literally influence people's moods. If they're having a bad day, you could turn it into a
yeah.
good day with one song. And I remember thinking that's a lot of power and a lot of responsibility. So when I'm up there DJing, I'm feeling like I can feel whether they're into it or not. And if I feel like they're not into it, that doesn't make me feel good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to choose another song that I love that I think might trigger a different response from them because I want them to feel good. They've come
Yeah,
there to feel
you're at
good.
service to the crowd in a lot of
You're
gigs, right? Like
serving.
if yeah,
Yeah. And I recently did, and we can touch on this later as well. I recently did Ibogaine, which is a form of plant medicine, and discovered that my underlying purpose for why I'm on planet Earth is to serve. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting that that came up for me because that really is how I approach DJing and music. Like I do before anything else, I want everybody to feel good. I want whatever they're going through in their lives, I don't want them to have to worry about that in that moment.
yeah.
I want to give them a break from
And I
that.
think that that's an interesting point where I wouldn't consider that people pleasing because I have people pleasing tendencies in the
Yeah.
past that I've
We
kind of
all do, by the
mitigated.
way.
Yeah, yeah, we all do. Which is mitigated, but what you just mentioned is not people pleasing. I think that is just serving,
It's serving.
you know? And like for me, even through and I only DJed for a short period of time and I was doing a lot of private gigs at the time too, but even doing a wedding reception where I knew these 2 families actually hated each other. Like
Yeah.
I've been to gigs where I was like,
That's never
there's
that's never good.
yes, like,
Yeah.
you know, and like in Indian cultures too, you have like maybe they're marrying a different like last name and it's like, you know, there's like battles there and stuff. It's
Wow.
I won't get into it, but anyways, but the art of being able to bring those 2 communities together on a common language and seeing them smile and dance together
Mm.
because that's the commonality. I just
Yeah.
created that bridge and the power to be able to do that is really special
Yes,
and
it
to
is.
serve in that form
Yeah.
of bringing people together and then having the taste to do that appropriately too because I can give me and you can give someone else a list of 10 songs if they play it in the wrong order,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
the
Yep.
night's over.
Yep.
If we played in the same 10 songs in the right order,
Yep.
the night's a whole different vibe.
Yes. Yep.
And that's a really cool part of like having taste around it too. But I love the point around that differentiation and the delineation between people pleasing and then the art of serving and seeing people be full of joy.
Right. It's
Wh
actually why and probably some of my previous clients have thought I was difficult for this reason, but it is the reason why if a client is being super extra with me about, "You need to play these," it gives me a set list basically and says, "You need to play all these songs." I actually have it in my rider that I get final say.
Yeah.
And it's not to be difficult, and it's not because I don't want to play the music they wanna hear. Unless I think it's completely ridiculous what they're
Yeah.
asking, I'll do my best, but I need to be able to make the final call as to whether or not, um, that music is going to serve,
Yeah.
and because it might not.
Absolutely. But at 17, I took a couple $100 bills from drunk Indian uncles telling me to
Who
play their
hasn't?
70s mix of some shit. I'm like, "Yeah, you know what? I'll do it."
At the end of the day, it's a job. Sometimes you gotta do those things to pay rent, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
But no, that's awesome. So that
yeah.
took you through almost a decade and a half of developing yourself as an artist.
Yep.
When was the transition into something greater than that? When did you start feeling like that wasn't the be all end all? Was it after a certain trip like the one you just mentioned, or
Yeah,
when was the inflection point of that change?
well, I have done a lot of plant medicine,
Yeah.
and I definitely when I did an ayahuasca journey, I think it was 2017, I just lost my stepdad, which was really
Mm,
devastating for me and everybody in my family, and we still miss him
yeah.
terribly. He was hugely influential over me, and I was experiencing a lot of grief, and my mother actually was, in LA visiting me. I lived in LA at the time, and I got a message. I was also freezing my eggs at the time, actually. So I was super hormonal on top of all of this
Yeah.
because I don't know if anyone out there has ever been through IVF or egg freezing or whatever. That shit is real. Like when you're injecting yourself with pregnancy hormones, it's like,
Yeah.
and I remember I was sitting on the couch with my mother, both dealing with this grief and also that medication. And I turned around to her and I said, I don't want you to be frightened, but I have to vocalize this. I feel like jumping out the window right now. Um, and she said, well, that does frighten me. I'm like, well, I'm just telling you. That's where my mind's at right now. I have a friend of mine in my life who's been in my life since I was about 15 years old. His name's Charlie Goldsmith. I don't know whether I've introduced you to him yet, but he lives in LA. I will. So Charlie is a very famous, if not the most famous healer in the world. He has this gift where he emanates this energy and he's able to heal people with that energy. And it is a very real thing. I've witnessed it hundreds of times. I've seen Charlie heal wounds through bandages. I've seen him um, take away people's chronic pain disorders,
Wow.
all sorts of things. He has something like an 80% success rate, and he's been studied in a lot of hospitals, worked with government bodies, that kind of thing. I mean, he's the real deal. Charlie and I have been close friends forever, and he has this, I don't know whether it's a sixth sense or because we're such close friends or because I mean, I've said this to people before and I really believe it. On some level, I think this guy's my guardian angel or one of them, but he just happens to walk the earth. He always seems to message me at the perfect time. And I
Mm.
remember in this moment, I got a message from Charlie and he said, how are you going? And I said, really shit. Told him what was going on. And he said to me, I think you should try ayahuasca. And to be honest with you, I had an ex-boyfriend who was doing it, and I thought that is something I would never do. That is insane. Why would you take this incredibly strong psychedelic and intentionally put yourself through hell?
Yeah, which is what it sounds like from the outside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it can be. But yeah, just in that moment, I all of a sudden felt like, shit, I think I might need to do this. And then I thought I'll ask my mom because she's 100% going to say no. I said, "Hey, mom," and she knows Charlie very well as well, and trusts him. I said, "Mom, Charlie thinks I should do this really strong psychedelic plant medicine called ayahuasca. What do you think?" She said, "I don't know why I'm saying this, but I've just got a feeling that he's right." And so 2 weeks later, I was in New York in a dance hall in Brooklyn, taking my first ever or sitting with ayahuasca for the very first time. And it was the craziest ride I've ever had.
When was this? 2020?
This is ayahuasca.
No, when?
Oh, when?
When?
2017.
2017. Okay.
I didn't know how badly I needed to purge, and I've actually never even heard of this happening to anybody else that I know. I'm sure it has, but I sat down. I was the second person to drink in the circle, and I took the ayahuasca. I'm walking back to my mat, sit down, and I already start going.
Yeah.
It was just coming out already. I remember sitting up against the wall because they get you to sit up against something and just being sucked back into the wall, like 8 universes away. And I went on this really crazy, visual, intense ayahuasca journey. I don't know why the number 17 is coming up in my head, but I feel like I threw up 17 times. I was throwing up demons. At one point, a demon got stuck in me and I was trying to blow it out my nose. And the shaman came over and was yelling at me because he said I was possessed and he was yelling at the demon to say the demon's name. And then I threw up again. I was like, no, I'm back. And I remember going all the way to hell and feeling the heat off the flames. Um, I mean, so it was really intense,
Holy shit, yeah.
but,
That's
um,
that
the
doesn't sound like any mushroom trip I've done.
no, no, mushrooms can be really intense too, but, yeah, it was kind of amazing because the advice I'd been given before this journey is no matter what, lean in. Don't fight it. Like, the scarier it gets, the more you lean in.
Surrender.
You just surrender. It's even more than surrendering. You sort of say to it, "Okay, you must be showing me this for a reason. Why is
Yeah,
it?"
because surrender is like neutral,
Yeah,
right?
you
And in
just
a
don't
sense, you
fight
you're
it.
saying like, engage, go in.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and you can make these conscious decisions on plant medicine. So I remember like I think the first demon face I saw, I said, "Okay, what's this about?" And then I threw up straight away.
So is that, like, symbolic of you purging that connection
Yeah.
to that
So
thing in
now
your life or a demon in your life?
so now I realize because I mentioned before I had some daddy issues. So I
Yeah.
remember the first demon I threw up was something to do with that. I actually kind of thought, and by the way, I have a great relationship with my dad now. So my plant medicine journeys have really helped me a lot. So I kind of thought, because of where I was at in my life, that my ayahuasca journey would be mostly about my dad, to be honest. I remember the first time I threw up in that journey, I think that was to do with my dad, and then it wasn't my dad at all. Most of my ayahuasca journey was about my mother.
Mm,
And when I went through it, the greatest realization I experienced out of that is how much my mother wanted me and how much she loves me and how much she would do anything for me. And so I've always had this really great appreciation for my mother
yeah.
since I did this journey. But yeah, all sorts of crazy stuff happened. Like I mentioned to you at dinner the other night, I have a sixth sense and I've spoken to spirits my entire life. That's something else we can get into if you want. But yeah, I had a bunch of spirits come to me
Yeah,
during this journey, which I fully expected to happen and wasn't surprised when they turned up. But what was really crazy is after everybody comes out of the experience, you all kind of sit around and you eat some fruit and stuff to and drink water to recover from it. And there was a New York ER doctor who was doing it next to me, and he actually was instrumental in my journey because when I got really sick and was throwing up a lot, he came over and helped me. But he said to me, "Hey, at one point, because they moved me to another room because I was really sick and making a lot of noise." He said, "At one point," he said, "there were all these spirits that turned up for you and they moved you into the other room." And my memory of being moved into the other room is that I had the 2 assistants actually, like, hold me up and walk me into the other room, and then there was 4 other people there. And I remember what they were wearing, and he described to me the outfits, their
that
outfits.
is crazy.
Yeah, so he saw them too. They were there. And the other really, really crazy thing that happened was, I'd always had this really crazy fear around childbirth. And at the time, I was on birth control, so I wasn't getting periods. But before I did ayahuasca, I'd heard all these horror stories about you were likely to throw up, but it could also apparently go the other way. So I thought, I'm going to cheat the system here. No one's going to know what I'm wearing. I've got sweatpants on. So, so I wore an adult diaper to go and do
That's amazing.
ayahuasca,
That's
and
amazing.
I was, like, so smart. I packed a couple spares in my bag and some wipes and stuff. I thought,
Some
there's
wipes.
gonna be, like, nothing worse than if you shit yourself doing ayahuasca,
Yeah,
than having to, like, clean up while you're, like, balls deep in the trip. So I really prepared for it.
that's
And
amazing.
and then so when I'm in the other room and keep in mind, I'm on birth control again. I was being held up by one of the assistants so I didn't choke on my own vomit, and I started going through this rebirth experience where I was literally sitting on my back
Yeah.
like this, and the first rebirth was, I was born again, but it was my exact birth. And when I was born, it was back in the 80s. They didn't know I was breech, and my mother didn't recognize the first signs of labor. So by the time she got to the hospital, my butt was out. I was born butt first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what happens when a baby's skin hits the air is it triggers the first breath. So my first breath was amniotic fluid and meconium. Nice, drowning my own shit. Uh, and then I think they, like, yanked me out, shoved the faucets in or something, and they got me out, but when I was born, I was not breathing, so they had to resuscitate me. What I didn't realize, because the body keeps the score, is that had given me this really crazy fear of childbirth. So when I was
Wow.
going through this rebirth experience, the first rebirth was my birth to show me where the fear came from. The second rebirth was a normal birth. Then the third rebirth, and this one's really weird, was me giving birth to myself. And I still to this day can't even work out how I did that. But I remember feeling it was the most connected to the universe and God and the creator and spirituality that I've ever felt. It was the most amazing experience. Like, women are
Oh, yeah.
so amazing.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that we can give birth to humans is so cool and such a
And the
privilege.
strength that comes with that. I
Yeah.
mean, I've seen my wife go through it once, about to see it again,
Again, yeah,
in a few
exactly.
weeks, and it is incredible.
Isn't it crazy
Yeah.
that, like, we can actually make another human?
Yeah.
It's
And
like,
just the fact that you had connected all those dots in this trip is so fascinating.
yeah, it was
And
really amazing. But here's the really crazy part.
it gets
So,
crazier.
oh yeah, plant medicine is powerful. So when I went to the bathroom afterwards to pee, I looked at my adult diaper. I'd bled everywhere. My body thought I was in labor,
Wow.
and it was,
That's how
and
powerful
it wasn't
the
a
mind.
period. Like, it didn't keep going. It was just this one.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is
Sorry to get
crazy.
graphic, everyone.
No, but that it just shows you how powerful your mind and
Yeah.
soul are, right? When they're unleashed like that, and how you can really create your own reality.
Yes.
And so all this self-work, right? So if you consider this chapter the chapter of like sort of self-work, you mentioned in the beginning, you get growth in the pain,
Yes.
which I wholeheartedly agree with. I've had my own journeys, and everyone's quote unquote pain is different. Everyone's trauma is different. Big T's, little T's, whatever
Yep.
you want to call it. But
It's all
there's so
relative.
much, it's all relative.
Yep.
There's so much growth in that pain. As you come out of something like this, for the people who haven't taken the chance on diving into their pain or grieving their pain or just sitting in it, whether it's not even with plant med, it's just sitting in it, period, is the
Yeah.
first step,
Plant
self-awareness.
medicine's only one way.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And then there's all the other iterations of growth you can have after being self-aware. The hurdle I see for most people who are maybe even thinking about being self-aware at first is, hey, life's good. Like, I have my job, I'm doing fine, I'm coasting, all this stuff. What is your lesson coming out of this on how this chapter of growth that you're still experiencing now, and
Yep.
then more important than the growth, the pain that you've consciously decided to choose to go through, how has that impacted your professional and personal life? And how has it expanded your horizons for being human and for interacting with all of the unique creative, business ideas, ventures, and all of that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that ayahuasca journey was really the first time I realized consciously realized I had a huge issue with self-worth, because another thing that kind of came up for me was that I had a lot of really controlling men in my life, in my career at that point, who were really holding me back and encouraging me to make decisions that were really not in alignment and well below what I deserved. So that ayahuasca journey really alerted me to
So
that.
immediately, you had that awareness
Yeah,
coming out
it's
of
not
it.
like I immediately fixed it.
Right. But you had the awareness to see that that was something that was probably holding you back from your
Yeah.
full potential.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. And if I'm truly honest about it, it's something that I feel like only now am I really starting to get to the other side of that. In my career, definitely. I feel like right now, the period I'm in is the period where I'm like, okay, I'm finally stepping into my worth. I'm finally taking charge and making decisions that are aligned with my authenticity. and what I deserve. I would say in my personal life, though, I still have some work to do on that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's yeah, healing's forever, and it's not linear. But the self awareness really started to come when plant medicine came into my life, and
Yeah.
but then I discovered this other plant medicine ibogaine that's really taken it like another 100 levels up. So
And in the meantime, since 20, I guess 17, 18, since that experience, how has your creative lens, how has your career shifted for you?
a wonderful mutual friend of ours, Nicole Benham, who I think you've also had on
Yeah.
the podcast,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So Nicole started a podcast post Clubhouse days, and it had never occurred to me to do a podcast, to be honest. She invited me on as a guest to her podcast, and the minute I walked into her studio, I just had this moment where I sat down on the couch and she'd already started rolling the cameras. So we have this recorded. She said, "How are you?" And I said, "I'm going to be honest and say I'm really triggered right now." She said, "Why are you triggered?" And I said, "Because this is this is what I want for myself." And I said, "I'm not jealous of you. I'm
Yeah.
extremely happy for you, but I just realized that this is what I want for myself." And she looked at me deadpan. She said, "You can have this."
That's incredible.
Yeah, and
So
then
true.
yeah, and then we did this really great podcast. We didn't know what the hell we were gonna talk about, and it just ended up being this really great episode that, we've got some great feedback on. And, afterwards, she said, "Do you really want a podcast?" I said, "Yeah, I really want a podcast." And she said, "Let me help you get this off the ground." And then I remember saying to Shanina, "Hey, I'm gonna start this." Shanina Shaikh, my best friend, who I have
Yeah.
80/20 with. I said, "Hey, I'm gonna do a podcast." And she said, "What are you gonna do your podcast about?" I'm like, "Hell knows. I don't
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm gonna do a podcast. I really wanna do a podcast." And she said, "Well, I used to do this thing called Wellness Wednesdays on IG during the pandemic. Would you wanna do a wellness podcast with me?" And I thought, actually, my first thought was, what business does a DJ who destroys their body like I do have doing a wellness podcast? And then I thought, hang on a second, actually, wellness is extremely important to me, especially after my health scare. I do eat really healthy foods. I really do try to prioritize my health during the week. I do work out a lot. Sleep not so good,
Yeah.
but everything else I really tried. I really put a conscious effort into it. Actually, that's 80% of my life. 80 20, 80
Yeah.
20. That's how it was
That's how it came.
born.
Yeah.
So we decided to do it together, and that's been another wonderful experience and learning curve in my life. So,
Yeah. What's your dream state coming out of being a DJ, having this ignition of where you started your career in like TV hosting and all of this coming back with the podcast? Where do you see all this going for you?
well, I never could have imagined, and it's so funny the way life works out. I mean, just my recommendation to everybody is don't plan. It's a waste of your time. And I really do believe this life has a funny way of giving you what you want, but a lot better. And that's really true in this scenario because I think when I first started out as a TV host, as much as I'm so grateful for that job, and I have the fondest memories of working both for Kids WB and at Channel 9 in Australia, the old media model has changed a lot. I mean, TV networks are not what they used to be, and there's so much power in having your own platform now, which anybody can have. You
Mhm.
can start a podcast, you can post content on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. I mean, there's so much power now and ability to actually build essentially your own TV network.
Mhm.
So 80/20. I mean, it's still going. We have another season coming out. It's likely we're gonna retire that concept. I'm sort of still figuring it out because, what I learned from that is that I really want to have my own thing. And I think even when I started that podcast and I agreed to do it with Shanina, and I regret nothing because I really love that
Yeah. Yeah,
podcast
you
and I
guys
love our
terrific job.
dynamic and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah. But I think there probably, if I'm completely honest, was some part of me that did not believe I could do it by myself
Mm.
and believed that I needed a crutch in my best friend
Yeah.
to do that. Now I'm in the process of figuring out what my next move is, and it's definitely another podcast. Um, and yeah, I won't say too much just yet, but
Yeah,
but
yeah,
but
yeah.
there's
We've
some
talked
things
about
in
it a
the
little
work
bit.
that
Yes.
we've talked about that I will announce soon. Yeah, but I would say underneath it all, and just to circle back to what I said before about I finally feel like I'm at the point in my life where I am I really am stepping into my self-worth, and I have confidence in myself and my abilities is now, because I really feel like, no, this is something I can do on my own. This is something I deserve. This is a great idea. It's something that I don't think anybody else is doing. It's something that I really dreamed up myself. Through the wonderful experience of doing 80/20. I was able to identify a lot of things about podcasting that I think are missing, that will really accelerate not just my podcast, but
Yeah.
the process
Yeah,
for
I
a
love
lot of
that,
other
and
people.
you have such a positive attitude on just being opportunistic and going for it, and I think, you mentioned earlier, it's like you chose to leave fear behind a long time ago.
Yeah. It's pointless. It's just
It
gonna hold you back and make you
s
miserable.
so it's easier said than done,
Oh god,
right?
yeah.
So the way you say it is very inspiring.
Thank
Fuck
you.
pointless, fuck fear, right? Which I love
By
because
the
I
way, I'm
think
still scared of a lot.
yes, but I that mentality and the conviction you have behind saying that is also magnetic, right? I think people wanna gravitate towards people who feel like that. I have people like that in my life. Noah is a great
Oh,
example,
yeah.
who you know well as well, but,
Yes.
like, fearless.
If I could bottle and sell Noah,
Yeah.
I'd be a billionaire.
Yeah.
I'm sure you
Drink
feel the same
this.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
drink this.
exactly.
How can you help people embody some of that energy and inspire it's coming back to the being of service. You have something of service right there and being able to say, "Go for it. You're about to start another venture and another" like, I know you'll be continuing to come up with new ideas for the next decade or 2.
I hope so.
Yeah, no, you will, and I think how do you bottle even slightly a bit of what you just said in order for someone else to really swallow that and believe in it?
Okay.
What are some of the ways you can encourage someone coming to you for advice around, "Okay, I wanna leave fear behind, but I may not have gone through some of the pain and life experiences yet that allow me to just immediately be like, 'Fuck fear.'"
Yeah, well, I mean, I think fear is very painful.
Yeah.
So even if they haven't been through something that rocks their world, I think being not living in your authenticity and being afraid to take an action creates a lot of pain, at least it does for me. I'm gonna give you a cheesy quote that you've probably heard before, which is everything you want is on the other side of fear.
Mm,
And it really is. I think the biggest stumbling block for me has been I have shocking perfectionism. And I can give myself 1,000 excuses every day as to why I can't do something. Oh, I can't film this bit of content now because I don't have any makeup on, or, or I'm hungover, or or I've got too much on today, or whatever it is. It's an excuse. Like, especially with TikTok now. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a social media whiz the other day. He's like, don't you realize that the videos that do the best on TikTok are the ones where people are sitting there with a bad angle and really shitty lighting and just shooting the shit?
yeah,
Like, we can give ourselves all the reasons in the world not to do something, but you are really letting yourself down. You're not of service to yourself. And more importantly, you're not of service to other people if you're not showing up.
mm,
So just do the thing, do it.
yeah,
Practice it, especially when it comes to content creation, which I know there's a huge fear barrier for a lot of people. It's something I still battle with every day. Like, just turn the damn camera on.
yeah,
Just say something to the camera. You don't have to post it. Just make it a goal to whatever your fear is, make it a goal to step through it in some small way every day. Even if it's not sharing it the world or something like that. Just take a step forward, because
mm,
eventually you will take so many little steps forward.
that
You'll break the barrier.
you'll be past it and be on the other side.
Yeah, and it is true. Everything you want is on the other side of fear.
Yeah,
So,
and you just illuminated another thing, like, just even if you haven't been through, a fortunate or unfortunate situation that has led to pain and then growth, just taking inventory of your energy from the day even, like, at the end of the day and being like, "What were the parts of the day that I felt down or not myself or less energized or less inspired?" Usually those tidbits of information will directly point at fear,
yeah, absolutely.
right? Like, make it up, like, after a long day of work, you come back, you feel demotivated or not energized, and you probably can line that back to, "Oh, I should have said something to my boss that I was scared to. But if I had said that thing, it would have liberated me from feeling like this at the end
Yeah.
of the day."
Oh, we love to live in the past, don't
Yeah.
we?
Yeah, exactly, and so
Mm.
I love that, and I
Do you
think
know every
it's
time
so
you live in
power
the past, you're just re-traumatizing yourself?
yeah,
That's something that Joe Dispenza teaches because your body physiologically actually doesn't know the difference between the event happening
time, yeah.
and what you've concocted in your brain. The other thing, I heard an interesting thing that he said the other day on a different podcast where he said that 50%, and this has been proven by studies, 50% of the memories we recall are bullshit. We've invented them in our brains.
No way.
So they didn't even happen. Yeah, so quite often
What? Really?
the trauma that we're experiencing from our lives that we can recall has been massively exaggerated. So
Mm,
you're essentially reliving these traumas and you really are reliving them because your body doesn't know the difference that didn't even happen to you.
yeah,
So when you realize that, that's crazy. Because I mean, we all know how hard it is to live in the present and how much of our brain space is taken up by reliving the past, right? I would say for me, I'm shocking. Like it takes a very large portion of my day.
yeah.
It's something I'm really trying to get under control a bit more. But yeah, but now that you know that half of it's not even true, and it's influencing your future decisions too, because like you're reliving these traumas. Let's just say, and this is something I'm currently working through and happy to share, is I'm single and I've reached a point in my life where I would love to meet a wonderful person and have a serious relationship. I only got there in October. And the reason I only got there in October was because that was when I did ibogaine and realized that I had a lot of resistance around that because my brain had invented all of these stories that equaled that being in a relationship was going to mean that I was trapped and unhappy.
Does that come from childhood? Like,
Yeah, a bit from childhood. My
parents?
parents didn't have
Yeah,
a happy relationship, but also just a little bit, from my previous relationships, because like everybody, I've been in some unhappy relationships with people that might have been great people, but not just not the right people
yeah.
for me, and I wasn't the right person for them.
But you're living the past in this current decision.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
also 50% of that was made up by me, so, which is
So
it's
when you say
ridiculous.
made up, are you saying exaggerated or literally made up? Like this happened?
I don't know, I'd
Yeah,
have to
I'm just
deep
kidding. That
dive
is a
on what
wild stat.
Joe Dispenza said, but he said it's roughly 50% of of our recalls from the past, just whether they're made up or
So figment of
exaggerations.
some sort of
Yeah.
yeah, of your imagination.
Yep.
Yeah.
So all of these future decisions or because we think about the future too, don't we? So like let's just say we meet somebody we like. This is how it happens for me. I always start thinking about how it's going to go wrong immediately or why this person would never want to be with me or it's a million negative scenarios based on the the literal lies that
Yeah.
I've told myself from the past. So, I can't remember what the point was, but
Yeah. Well, that is I'm so happy to hear that you're finally, even though it was just this past
yeah.
October, getting to a point where you
Yeah.
can get out of that cycle
But I feel like with my
and
career,
get
I'm
ready
there.
for
So I'm
yeah.
hoping I'm hoping that these hurdles that been able to overcome with my career and finally sort of feeling like I'm stepping into my self-worth there and the things that I'm doing are very much in alignment with my underlying purpose to serve and what I really want to do. I'm hoping the next, it's going to carry into my personal
Yeah.
life too.
I love that. And as you take on these new ventures, how do you keep so tapped into art and culture and music? Because every time I talk to you, I feel like you are in the know
Okay.
and in the mix and you're kind of at the pulse of things, which I appreciate because that always inspires me in a conversation. I'm like, oh yeah, shit, she said that. Like I should be thinking about that. Or you have these unique sound bites every time I meet you. Like you're always on the pulse of,
Thank you.
yeah. And I think that's really cool. I don't know if it's like, it's an advantage or dis whatever it is, but you're doing it and it's cool. And I think that it's really inspiring to see you can do that in a world so full of overwhelming amount of information, but somehow you've found a way to distill it to what you need. And
Yeah.
how do you go about that? And how are you sort of creating this sense of being on the pulse all the time?
Well, first of all, thank you for saying
Yeah.
that. I think it comes back to I think it's 2 things. I think it comes back to love. Again, I really they say when you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. I know that the moves that I'm making right now, even though they are going to be a lot of work, they're not really gonna be work. This is what I want. This is what I'm
Mm,
passionate about. This is what I love. And I think the other side of it is identifying a problem. Like if you wanna start a business, solve a problem. And for me, I was so passionate about building 80/20 and the podcast that, I discovered all these problems inevitably along the way, and I just noticed that there was just nowhere nowhere to solve them. Like, I spoke to a lot of people, I tried to find the solution. I was convinced the solution existed, and I just realized it didn't.
mm. So there's a
Um
curiosity around problem solving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I discovered the problem, and then I went, "Okay, how do I solve this problem?" And this is how you solve the problem. Teamwork. It's always teamwork. Something I learned in the Ibogaine experience is that I have a real issue asking for help. I've always been hyper independent, which probably comes from trauma. And so I've always kind of felt like I have to do everything by myself, and I've always tried to do something everything by myself.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that's why I haven't been as successful as I deserve to be, is
You don't let other
because
people in to support that journey.
yep, never
Not
trusted
be
anyone to
yeah.
help me, always felt like I had to do it by myself, always felt like I couldn't afford the help.
Yeah.
This time I'm approaching things very differently. I've been very I did a self-audit where I got really honest with myself about what I was good at, what I wasn't good at, and also what I was willing to dedicate my time to and what I wasn't.
Yep.
And then once I did that self-audit, I went and I searched for the best people that could excel at doing the things that I couldn't do or wasn't willing to do. And so now I'm starting to assemble the greatest team of ninjas ever to solve this problem. And I'm really excited about it, and I'm loving every minute of it. And I think that's the culmination of everything is why I finally feel like I'm stepping into my self-worth and my purpose,
Yeah.
and it's all just coming together.
So you mentioned 2 good things. So the teamwork, relying on a team, the love and passion for it.
Yep.
In terms of distilling information and trends and all of that from sources, when I think about sources, I think either you're retaining that from scrolling social media
Yeah.
or you're having meetings with real people because you're ingesting information in so many ways, right? And you're someone who again is multifaceted, so you're taking in information from a variety of industries, business, creatives, art, music, etc. Is a lot of that being sourced from having conversations like this with other people and other leaders in the industry, or are
Absolutely.
you kind of letting data and trends and what's shown to you on social kinda drive your awareness around some of this stuff?
Well, I don't wanna claim to be a social media expert because 'cause I'm definitely not. That's a lane that I've always found. I've often joked with people, I'm like, "I'm like a boomer on TikTok. I don't know what the hell to do."
Yeah,
And yet I see other people absolutely dominating on that platform who just get it. So I rely a lot on other people to teach me. I know what I'm good at, and that's podcasting. I know how to make a really great podcast. I know that's something you clearly get too. I mean,
yeah,
this is a beautiful studio. You make really
yeah.
beautiful content, with your
I was gonna
amazing
say shout out
team.
to
Yeah,
Maxine and Jordan.
exactly. But I know that's a lane that I'm very comfortable in as well. And I just through having conversations with people that know they're a lot smarter than me in their lanes and know a lot more than me, I've been able to learn a lot, but also I'm staying in my lane.
Yeah.
Like just stay in your lane and team up with the
Do what
best
you do
people.
best and outsource the rest, right?
Yes.
And that
Yes.
takes teamwork.
Yeah,
And
it
we just had
does.
a conversation about this earlier this morning around it takes a village to build a really great brand. And
Yes.
empowering people who really understand those fundamentals on your team. I mean, even in our own team, like me, Noah, Todd, Matthew, Jay, we have so many amazing individuals who I get to speak to every day that all bring their unique perspectives. Like I talk a lot.
Yeah.
My right hand at work, she kind of doesn't talk as much, and it's actually a really good compliment.
Yeah.
'Cause and using those compliments, and when you put it together in a team setting, you build this group of Avengers, ninjas, whatever you call them, right? And that's how you move the ball forward.
Yeah.
Um,
What did they say jack of all trades, master of none. Like, I feel like I've always been that person,
yeah.
and
But that's also useful in certain scenarios. Like I feel like that too. I feel like I am multidimensional.
mm.
Have you done the human design test?
I haven't, but everyone oh my god, okay, this is a
Yeah.
sign from the universe because everyone keeps telling me
Yes,
I have
there
to
you
do
go.
it, so I'm gonna
Boom.
do it. Yeah.
I think you'll probably be similar manifesting generator, which is kind
Yeah.
of multifaceted, multidimensional, starting new things, maybe sometimes not finishing them.
Duh.
Is
Hi, have you met me? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I got called out on something. I was like, oh yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
But that along with the teammate that complements taking it to the finish line
Yeah.
is really powerful.
Yeah.
I can press start on a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
And they're probably all amazing things. I'll give
Yes.
myself credit. Like it's not like shitty ideas.
No.
They're great ideas. But I don't wanna take the ball down all the way. I don't have a love for it,
Yes. Yep.
right? And so allowing yourself to delegate that has been a big learning thing for me because I do have not do, I used to, I think I've worked on a ton of it, have a lot of issue delegating or giving up the control because I knew I had the most passion around something and I could do it better because I had more passion.
You're a Pisces too, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're the same birthday, day
Yes, yeah, we
apart.
do. Day
Yeah.
apart. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but yeah, I love that you said that. If we can end on a note of magnetism, you embody it, and so I think you can observe it in others. That's what I've always felt about any characteristic and trait. If you have it, you can see it in others. What are those traits that draw you to certain people, brands, and trends or cultures?
Honesty, authenticity, integrity.
Yeah, you
100%.
have those nailed.
Yeah, I really because it's something I've thought about a lot, and you really can tell. It's funny, I
Honesty, integrity.
honesty
Yeah,
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 yeah, honesty, integrity, authenticity, and easier said than done, and I'm not criticizing other people because I feel like I've spent a very large portion of my life not being honest with myself. I'm a very honest person with other people, but not necessarily being honest with
mm,
myself, not living in my authenticity. And I'd say I've always had integrity, to be
yeah,
fair. But yeah, I mean, if you think you're fooling anybody out there, you're not.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's really amazing that, especially with social media, we have a window into people's worlds, right? And I love kind of scrolling through sometimes. I shouldn't be, but doom scrolling through and looking at different creators who post about authenticity and magnetism and that sort of thing. And some of them are really amazing, and they are the people that really do embody those qualities. And then some of them just really want to be that person.
yeah, for sure. And you can
And
see through it.
you can see through it. They're literally like cellophane, you can see through it. So, I would just say that, yeah, if you truly wanna be a magnetic person, do a self-audit and make sure you actually
Yeah.
embody those 3 things.
Yeah, be true to yourself and be
Yep.
your highest self, and I think that's a great note to end on, like, even in the moments where I feel like fear is coming up and all that, I try to and you said it earlier, and it came up when you were visualizing yourself, in the room or whatever, I think,
Yeah,
yeah, when you were, like, out of the picture.
like, out of my body,
Yeah,
yeah.
out of your body and
Yeah,
kind of viewing it, and I think that is your highest self because that person doesn't have ties to, like, an emotional outcome or, an egotistical outcome in the reality of the conversation, and when I try to be that highest self and it's even as simple as, like, changing your posture, like,
yeah,
in real time
yeah.
moments, right, where you feel
Ooh,
like
you just made me
yeah, where
need to
you feel like
realign
you're
here. Yeah,
like, your body's shrinking because you're doing something that isn't authentic to you
yeah.
or you're people pleasing, or whatever that is, and
I actually saw on another podcast that if you the distance between your ears, correlates with how much someone trusts you, by the way.
oh, yeah,
So if
good
you're
thing
sitting
I have
like
slanted
this
shoulders, so I
I
got a lot of
know, now I'm
distance, which
like,
is
"God, can we go back and re-record this? Because I
actually,
feel
I
like
think
I
that
was like
someone
this."
told me that I felt like I was trustworthy, and I think it's because like, just by
Yeah,
look I think it's
yeah, sorry to go off on a tangent
yes,
there,
no,
but
that
yeah,
is interesting.
interesting.
But,
Yeah,
yeah, so anyways, your highest self is determined by, like, just your posture and you coming at it from, like, this third party awareness of, what would the collective you do in a situation like this versus just, the parts of you that are living in the past, but,
yeah.
I love this conversation, and I really appreciate you being here. This
Thank
was
you,
so
it's
much
been
fun.
great to be here.
Yes.
If we can end on this, actually,
Yes,
I've
of
there's a little
course.
exercise. I have a life coach, and she's really
Yeah.
wonderful. She actually gave me a little exercise that really, really helped me with this. So
Yeah.
if you're feeling a
Hit
bit
me.
lost and you feel like you can't really tap in with what you want or who you are, get a notepad and a pen or a journal or whatever. Sit down, set a little 3-minute timer on your phone. That's all it has to be. especially if you're a bad meditator. Sit down, close your eyes, pick a topic that's on your mind, whether it's work or whatever, and ask the creator source, whatever you believe in, just say, okay, can you tell me how to, what I should do next in my career or whatever it is, or like how to solve this conflict with my boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. And just allow the downloads to come through for 3 minutes. You will be blown away by how much you learn from your subconscious and how much that changes you.
Mm.
Just with that little 3-minute exercise every day.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
That really helped me a lot. So,
Awesome. I appreciate that.
yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. This was awesome.
Yay.